Do you believe that there once existed a shark 3 times the size of a bus capable of swallowing a whale in one bite? That is Megalodon, a real monster that ruled the ocean millions of years ago. With teeth up to 15 centimeters long and a bite so strong that it could crush a truck, Megalodon made even T-Rex inferior. But then that super shark mysteriously disappeared. What caused the planet's strongest predator to become extinct? Was it climate change, a new enemy, or an unknown disaster? In today's video, we will explore the thrilling truth behind the unexpected end of Megalodon. If you love mysterious stories about nature and evolutionary history, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next interesting videos. In the prehistoric world, no creature shook the oceans like Megalodon, the giant shark known as the ocean terror. Not only was Megalodon huge, it was also far larger than any predator that ever existed on land or in water. Up to 21 meters long, equivalent to the length of 3 buses lined up, and weighing more than 50 tons, it was a real nightmare for marine creatures at that time. No whale, no matter how large, could escape the jaws of this predator. What made Megalodon special was not only its size, but also its body structure that was perfectly optimized for hunting. Its jaws could open nearly 3 meters wide, enough to swallow an adult whale whole. Its triangular teeth were up to 15 centimeter long, razor sharp, with small saws to tear through the thick flesh of its prey. A Megalodon bite has a bite force of up to 18 tons, stronger than any carnivore that has ever existed, including the Tyrannosaurus rex. To put that in perspective, this bite force can crush a truck like scrap paper. Going deeper into its biology, Megalodon has an extremely muscular body structure, a large tail fin that helps it move at an incredibly high speed compared to its huge size. Each of its lunges is a precise, merciless attack. It often targets the belly or fins of whales, weak points that can easily cause death. And it doesn't just attack to eat, but also hunts like a professional killer, silently approaching, delivering a fatal bite, then following its prey until it collapses. Megalodon is not limited to any specific area. Its fossils have been found on all continents, from the coast of Europe to the seas of Africa, from North America to South America, and even Oceania. This proves that Megalodon was the global master of the ocean throughout the Cenozoic. Unlike modern sharks that often operate in groups or have limited hunting grounds, Megalodon was a solitary species without rivals and almost did not need to share territory with any species. In particular, Megalodon's diet clearly reflected its position at the top of the food chain. It did not hunt small species, but chose large whales, dolphins, seals, and even other sharks as food. Some studies suggest that each day, an adult Megalodon needed to eat from 1,000 to 1,500 kilos of meat to maintain energy, a terrifying number that only true kings of prey could meet. From an evolutionary perspective, Megalodon is the perfect result of millions of years of natural selection, where strength, speed, and adaptability were pushed to the peak. Not only was it the largest shark that ever lived, it was also a symbol of the supremacy of the predator in nature. With such size and power, Megalodon once made the entire ocean give way. No creature dared to confront it directly. And that is why, even today, despite being extinct for millions of years, Megalodon still evokes obsession and intense curiosity in the imagination of modern humans. About 2.6 million years ago, the Earth entered a period of extreme change, the first ice age of the Quaternary. This was also the period when the megashark Megalodon began to disappear from the ocean. Many paleontologists have found a clear link between this global climate event and the extinction of the most fearsome predator in history. At that time, about 30% of the Earth's surface was covered in ice, causing sea levels to drop significantly. This not only affected the shallow marine ecosystem, where Megalodon often lived and hunted, but also caused the warm water to gradually shrink. For a giant shark that needed a stable and rich environment to maintain its massive body, this change was a major shock to survival. One widely accepted hypothesis, presented by paleontologist Morgan in 1994, is that the shrinking of its habitat due to the sharp drop in temperatures directly affected Megalodon's inability to adapt. Morgan suggests that the species was accustomed to warm waters where whales and marine mammals congregated, but as ocean currents shifted and ice sheets expanded, that environment gradually disappeared. Evidence for this comes from the fact that no new fossils of Megalodon have been found since the first ice age in the seas that were once Megalodon's territory. This suggests that the giant shark did not have time to adapt or migrate to new waters, but may have been stuck in increasingly cold and food-scarce waters. In addition, climate change severely affected Megalodon's main food source, whales and large marine mammals. Many of these species, in order to survive, migrated towards colder polar waters where Megalodon may not have been able to sustain its hunting activities effectively. They took with them the entire food chain on which Megalodon depended. As prey migrated, predators were forced to make a choice: adapt, migrate, or go extinct. Another factor that cannot be ignored is the relationship between Megalodon and sea levels. As the polar ice sheets formed strongly, global sea levels dropped, exposing many shallow continental shelves, which were once ideal hunting grounds. Deeper waters, while still present, were colder and less biodiverse, not enough to support a giant body like Megalodon. The species then had to hunt in an increasingly harsh and scarce environment. It is also important to understand that an apex predator like Megalodon could not easily change its diet or adjust its habitat in just a few generations. With its size and unique biological structure, it is absolutely dependent on deep sea areas, warm, rich in whales. When the environment is no longer suitable, Megalodon falls into an irreversible extinction spiral. In short, global climate change, especially the onset of the Ice Age, is the first shot that pushes Megalodon into extinction. As the Earth cools, the ocean shrinks, creatures migrate, and the hunting environment disappears. The giant shark has no place to stand. It is not only the disappearance of a species, but also a warning bell about the brutal power of nature. No matter how big and scary you are, you still cannot win against the changes of the planet. For many years, the scientific consensus was that climate change, specifically a sharp drop in ocean temperatures, had rendered Megalodon unable to adapt and led to its extinction. However, starting around 2016, a group of paleontologists proposed a powerful counter-theory that shook the foundations of the previous argument. They argued that Megalodon could have survived in cold waters and that its extinction may have been due to other more complex factors. Chief among these is research by Dr. Catalina Pimiento, who analyzed hundreds of Megalodon fossils from around the world. She found that Megalodon fossils were still found in waters that were much colder than originally assumed, suggesting that they existed, and did quite well, in both cool and cold waters. This completely refutes the idea that Megalodon was a warm water species. One thing to note is that Megalodon's biology suggests that it could retain heat effectively, similar to modern sharks like the great white shark. These species belong to the group of relatively warm-blooded sharks, capable of regulating their body temperature, helping them survive even in cold waters. This feature makes Megalodon a thermophile rather than a creature that only exists in fixed temperature conditions. Not only that, Megalodon's enormous size also plays an important role. In marine biology, large creatures often have a lower surface area to body volume ratio, which helps them retain heat better. In other words, an adult Megalodon could swim in cold water without losing body temperature as quickly as smaller fish. This makes the argument that cold water kills Megalodon seem too simple and one-sided. In particular, Megalodon is believed to have had a diverse and flexible hunting behavior, not relying on a fixed territory or a single type of prey. The migration of whales to cold waters does not mean that Megalodon would completely lose its food source. In fact, it is possible that Megalodon migrated with the whales, continuing to hunt in colder climates. The flexibility in hunting behavior and suitable biological structure allows us to assume that they have adapted to the new environment. The evidence also lies in the similarities between Megalodon and its descendants. Species such as the modern great white shark, considered a close relative, are living stably in both temperate and subpolar seas. This proves that the Megalodon genetic lineage has the ability to adapt to temperature changes. There is no reason why the ancestors of these modern predators would be completely helpless in the face of an ocean cooling event. So, why did Megalodon go extinct if it could survive in cold water? That question opens up other hypotheses, such as competition for survival, declines in marine life, or changes in the global food chain, which we'll discuss in the next sections. But what's clear here is that climate change wasn't the simple death sentence that many people think Megalodon was. Instead, its demise was likely the result of a combination of more complex, indirect, and simultaneous factors. Although Megalodon was the largest predator to ever exist in the ocean, that does not mean it had no rivals. On the contrary, in the final stages before its extinction, Megalodon faced the emergence of formidable competitors, not only in terms of physical strength, but also in survival strategy. And it was this fierce competition for survival that put the giant shark at a serious disadvantage. One of Megalodon's most fearsome, direct rivals was Leviathan melvilli, a prehistoric sperm whale that appeared around the same time, up to 17 meters long with 30 centimeter long teeth, larger than any modern whale. Unlike today's sperm whales, which mainly eat giant squid, Leviathan was a true predator, attacking and eating other whales right into Megalodon's main food group. This led to a direct confrontation between the two giants of the ocean, as both competed for the same resources. Not stopping there, Megalodon also had to face the rise of smaller but more agile sharks, especially the ancestor of the modern great white shark, Carcharodon hubeli. These guys, although not massive, had flexible hunting abilities, consumed little energy, and could operate in many different seas. Their appearance and widespread distribution caused the small whales, which used to be Megalodon's backup food, to fall into a state of double exploitation, making Megalodon's food source increasingly scarce. In addition, in the context of rapidly changing marine ecosystems, the diversity of predators increased while the abundance of prey decreased sharply. Megalodon, with its enormous size, needed a huge amount of food every day, up to more than 1,000 kg of whale meat, to sustain its activities. Meanwhile, new predators, such as ancient killer whales or smaller shark relatives, needed much smaller amounts of food to survive, and they adapted quickly to new marine conditions, especially cold waters. Competition was not only biological, but also an evolutionary battle. The smaller ones began to reproduce, faster, spread faster, expended less energy, and were more adaptable when food was scarce. Meanwhile, Megalodon, powerful as it was, could not shrink in size or change its physiological structure in a short time, which made it more vulnerable to environmental changes. It is worth noting that the proportion of Megalodon fossils found gradually decreases in later geological layers, while fossils of smaller sharks, such as the ancestral great white shark, become increasingly abundant. This suggests that competition not only occurred but clearly won out over Megalodon. Pure strength was not enough to maintain dominance as the environment changed, and those who adapted quickly were the ones who survived. In nature, even the most powerful creatures cannot overcome the basic limit of survival without food. There is no survival. Megalodon, with its enormous size and overwhelming strength, is a typical example of this harsh law. One of the main decisive causes for Megalodon's extinction was the severe decline in food sources in the ocean at the end of the Cenozoic period. Megalodon did not eat small fish. It was a killer of adult whales, calves, large seals, and even smaller sharks. These were fatty species, large enough to provide hundreds of kilograms of meat in a single hunt. However, about 3 million years ago, the number of whales in the ocean began to decline rapidly, and the cause came from many overlapping causes. First was the decline of plankton, the first link in the marine food chain. Due to changes in global temperatures and ocean currents, the amount of light and minerals in many areas of the ocean has changed, causing a sharp decrease in the amount of plankton. As a result, small fish, which feed on plankton, have also decreased. This has led to a decrease in the number of large fish and eventually marine mammals such as whales. The entire marine ecosystem has collapsed step by step, leading to a series of unpredictable consequences for apex predators such as Megalodon. A study published in the journal Nature, Ecology and Evolution in 2017 found that about 55% of marine mammals, 43% of sea turtles, and more than 35% of sharks have disappeared in just the last few million years. This loss means that Megalodon has less and less chance of finding enough food to survive, let alone maintain the energy levels needed to hunt, move, and reproduce. What is more worrying is that the whales themselves, the main prey of Megalodon, also began to change their behavior towards migrating farther and faster to colder waters in search of more suitable habitats. But, as analyzed, not all Megalodon individuals could migrate or adapt immediately. When whales disappeared from traditional hunting grounds, Megalodon began to fall into a state of prolonged energy shortage. Biologically, the larger an animal, the higher its energy needs. For Megalodon, this number could be up to more than 1,000 kilos of meat per day. To maintain that pace of life, it was forced to hunt at least one small whale each day, something completely impossible in an increasingly empty ocean. Even if it could switch to smaller prey, Megalodon would not be able to hunt enough in a day without expending too much energy, leading to an irreversible negative survival spiral. In addition, in a rapidly changing environment, smaller animals have a huge advantage. They need less food, reproduce faster, and are more adaptable to different waters. Meanwhile, Megalodon, with its massive body and long reproductive cycle, cannot adjust to environmental fluctuations. As food sources become increasingly scarce, young individuals starve before reaching adulthood, and adults become exhausted after each failed hunt. As a result, the Megalodon population declines rapidly without a chance to recover. As Megalodon gradually disappeared from the ocean, a cruel law of nature was once again affirmed: the small, flexible, and adaptable will survive, while the large, no matter how strong, can still be eliminated if they cannot keep up with the changing environment. In the chaotic context of the late Cenozoic Ocean, where food was scarce, climate fluctuated, and new species constantly appeared, creatures smaller than Megalodon quickly rose up and took over the ecosystem it left behind. Specifically, smaller sharks, such as the ancestors of modern great white sharks, gradually became the new dominant predators. With only 1/3 the length of Megalodon, but with superior swimming speed, flexible turning ability, and much lower energy needs, they easily adapted to the new sea even when food sources became scarce. Instead of hunting large whales, these sharks turned to squid, small fish, seals, or floating carcasses, any source of protein they could find. It was this flexibility that helped them survive the crisis, while Megalodon, too dependent on whales, gradually weakened and became extinct. Similarly, the ancient killer whales, the ancestors of today's orcas, also began to rise. Although not as large as Leviathan or Megalodon, they lived in strategic pods, knew how to coordinate when hunting, and targeted targets that were within their strength. Unlike Megalodon, which hunted alone, killer whales used cooperation and intelligence to hunt sea creatures larger than themselves. Their ability to communicate, migrate seasonally, and adapt to different seas allowed them to gradually replace Megalodon as the ocean's top predator. Notably, the extinction of Megalodon opened up new evolutionary opportunities for whales. Without the threat of a giant predator, the average whales no longer had to live under the pressure of having to be small to hide. Instead, they began to evolve in the opposite direction, getting bigger. This explains why the blue whale, the largest creature to ever exist on Earth, appeared not long after Megalodon disappeared from the biological map. A study by Dr. Catalina Pimiento shows that in the few million years after the extinction of Megalodon, the average size of whale species increased dramatically, leading to an increase in biodiversity and food chain structure in the ocean. With no apex predator, the marine ecosystem adjusted, allowing plankton-eating, fast-reproducing, and gregarious species to thrive. And thus began a new era of giant whales. Interestingly, some scientists have even predicted that in the distant future, modern great white sharks could evolve into a new species of giant, similar to the megalodon that once was. Recorded data shows that the average size of great white sharks is currently increasing slightly with each generation, possibly due to a return to abundant food sources or new biological selection pressures. Will the oceans produce a Megalodon 2.0 in millions of years? Megalodon, the legendary predator of the ocean, is extinct. But its death is not just the end of a species, but the clearest proof of the cruel law of nature. Not the strongest survive, but the one that adapts the fastest. From climate change to the decline of food to the rise of smaller but more agile rivals, all at once pushed Megalodon from its throne and then disappeared forever from the ocean. And it was also the void it left that paved the way for dramatic changes in the ecosystem. Whales began to swell, great white sharks rose to become the new rulers, and the ocean entered a completely different era. What do you think about the end of Megalodon? If this giant shark still existed today, would humans dare to go into the sea? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views. And if you love fascinating stories about prehistoric animals, evolutionary biology, and the mysterious natural world, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. See you on the next journey of discovery.